You're listening to the StudioPTBO Podcast, where we talk all things marketing to help you build and grow your business online. Welcome to the latest episode. Welcome to the StudioPTBO Podcast. We are back, and we're back at it again with another guest. Neil Morton, how are you doing, my friend? You going to sing a ballad for me today?
No, definitely not, Cody May. You've heard me sing, and I was definitely, it's funny. I was cut from like the choir at Emerson Heights Primary School, and I think I was the only person cut. I am that bad a singer.
I'm not surprised at all.
But yeah, we have a really special guest on, speaking of singing today, and someone who can belt out the best karaoke ever this side of Peterborough and beyond. Rob Wells is in the house today. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Exciting.
Yeah, this is great. So Rob is a award-winning singer, arranger, writer, but his real claim to fame really is being the Adam Scott Hall of Honor. Yes. Is that correct, Rob?
Yes, it is. It is actually. I had a guidance counselor in Adam Scott when I was going there in high school tell me that if I followed music, I'd be living on the streets. And it was just poetic justice getting on that Hall of Honor. That was really quite something.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, Rob is a true success story. We went to Adam Scott together. He was a couple grades below me. But I do remember you being always in that sphere in high school, the creativity and drama and music. That was always, even then, and you and your brother Greg, both of you were very musically inclined. And give me a framework of growing up and being in the north end of Peterborough and Adam Scott itself. What did, if anything, it instill in you? Was there a particular teacher that inspired you there?
Yeah, actually, going back to Edmondson Heights, my elementary school as well, I had a teacher in grade 3 who realized that I loved to play piano. Every recess, every lunch break, after school, they'd have to kick me out of the school. And then I'd go home and play piano some more and play some video games and things like that. But in grade 3, my teacher, Mr. Tompkins, who is no longer with us, he passed away last year. He actually asked me if I'd be interested in writing a song for our grade 3 class to sing. And I went home over the Christmas break and worked on that and came back and played it to him. And he played it to the class, and they all had to learn it. They were kind of forced to learn it. Yeah. And we then performed it in front of the whole school, teachers, parents. And there was like some big event that happened in April. I can't remember exactly, but that was kind of it. That was like a real sort of eye-opening experience for me to realize that you could write songs, that you could be part of songs, that you could create music, you could create, art in the form of music and all of that. And I also grew up in a very musical household. Like, my mom played, my brother played, my grandparents played. So many people in the family played music. And then my dad was a minister at Northminster United Church, and going to church every week, there'd be choirs. There was the junior choir that I was a part of. They had musicals that they would put on, all sorts of musical presentations and performances. And so you kind of just really didn't have a chance not to get into music in my house, basically.
Was there like a defining point that you, like, I know that, like, obviously your entire family and you grew up in a musical household, you grew up in church and everything, but was there a defining point where you're like, I want to make this a career? Like, I'm curious about that and how that started. Was there kind of an aha moment where you're like, I really want to go into music, I want to produce, I want to write music? Like, was there anything like that happened in your life that you can like really think that really shaped where you are now?
Well, I think definitely that moment in grade 3, actually, when I was 8, like, believe it or not, it's a really young age to make that happen. But that was a real sort of like aha moment. There's something in this. And I took a real interest then in buying records and buying music, and then looking at all the credits and reading about the songwriters and reading about the producers and where it was recorded and who played on it and all of that. So I had dreams at that point of being in a band and being famous and being a singer and doing all of that. And I didn't realize that, I more have a face for radio and that sort of thing. So being an artist wasn't really what I was cut out to do, but I love writing so much that I just continued that in through high school. I would write. I wouldn't do homework at night. I'd work on the morning announcements, and I'd create like a recording and then play that on the morning announcements the next day. I just took a real interest in that. I then left Peterborough for grade 13. I went to a performing arts high school in Toronto. And in that school, there was a music studio. And that just really, that was another aha moment where it just like everything exploded. And I was then working with multiple instruments and recording and producing and bringing in different artists from the schools, different singers. And we'd work on covers, we'd work on originals. And that just sort of, that was another moment where things kind of exploded for me creatively and made me realize that maybe this is something that I would like to do.
It's interesting. You're right. Like for me, it's moments in life sometimes that happen that change your perspective and your perception of what you can do with your life and what you want to do with your life. It does happen that way. Sometimes it's serendipity and luck and timing, but it's moments too. Like I had a teacher at Adam Scott, Mr. Brian, who just like, he inspired me. Like one person, the way he taught inspired me to want to write because I wasn't that engaged in high school. I own that. I was like a party guy, a jock, what have you. But he pushed me to do that, but not aggressively. Just his passion for life and his passion for studying books and being dramatic. And it can be one teacher, you're right, Rob, or one moment that really defines your life, or a series of moments. What's really interesting, I was looking in the Escovian this morning, 1980 somewhat. So you predicted, this was Scott Odyssey, predicting in the year 2009. So 20 years later, you predicted this, that hopefully I will be in a musical group which orbits the solar system, taking requests from extraterrestrial life.
That's not too far from the truth.
That is pretty amazing, isn't it? Like, do you recall that quote? Have you looked back on?
I had that same book. It makes me laugh. I mean, we all thought the world was going to be like Blade Runner at this time, right? So we all thought we'd be living on off-world colonies and things. So I was obsessed with sci-fi, and I think that's why I wrote another.
But you didn't. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah. So like, take us through kind of the genesis of like how you got to where you are today. Like, you know, working with like people like Ariana Grande, Selena Gomez, Biebs, like all these things. Like, you know, was there a defining moment specifically in your musical career where these things really started to click? And like, how did the genesis of, you know, working on Canadian Idol and all this stuff, how did this all happen?
Absolutely. Okay. You guys have a minute?
We have tons of minutes.
Okay. I mean, coming out of high school, yes, I wanted to get into music and I really wanted to be involved in writing songs and producing songs and the creation of music in one way or another. I had no idea how to connect point A to point B. So I was just doing it all by myself, writing in my basement, evenings, weekends. I had other jobs. I worked for the Bank of Nova Scotia at one point. I went back to school and studied computer animation, and then I became a computer animator for 7 years. But each night, each weekend, each little bit of free time that I had, I would just pour all of my time and energy into creating songs. And then along the way, I heard about different organizations that were out there, Songwriters Association of Canada, SOCAN, different things like that. They would hold, but that was a huge moment as well, another explosive moment where things really started to change, where I started to bring other people in to the creative process and co-write with them. It now just wasn't me working on the song. It was me plus one other or maybe two other people. And we were writing the song and trying to find a home for the song. So now instead of just one person, it's two people, it's three people trying to find a home for that song. And then you start to network and start to realize that there's lots of other people out there. I then caught wind of something that was coming up called a writing camp. And a writing camp is basically a lot of people getting together, usually about 30 or 40 people. And over the course of a week, we all write for one particular project. And hopefully by the end of that week, you have hundreds of songs to choose from for that project. It's a really quick way to just quickly get a lot of material to choose from. So I heard about this writing camp that was coming up. It was being held at Metalworks Studio in Toronto, Mississauga. And I begged and pleaded with the people. And I just said, listen, you don't know who I am. I have no success, but I promise you I can deliver. I can, you know, do whatever it takes to make this happen. And they let me in. They said, we'll let you in, but you had better kick some serious butt when you're in there. And I went in there and I met 40 amazing writers, some people that were signed writers to publishing deals, some people that were already artists that I'd known, that I'd grown up listening to. Really, really cool. I got in there and spent a week and wrote millions of songs, stayed up till 6 a.m., went home, slept for an hour, showered, came back at 8 o'clock in the morning and started all over again. I was a lot younger then, so I could definitely do those kind of hours. But just kept writing. And at the end of the week, it was all over. We had a big listening session, big party. A lot of publishers came out to listen to these songs. None of those songs that I wrote actually got selected to go onto the project, which was a little hard for me to take at that time. I then went back to my animation job. I guess I better just keep animating here and I'll just do music on the side and keep it as a hobby. But then 2 years after that, I got a phone call from a guy that I was at that writing camp with. And he said, do you remember that song that we wrote on the second day in the afternoon? And I'm like, yeah, totally. I love that song. And he said, well, would you be cool if we release that song with another artist here in Vancouver? And I said, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Put it on the record. That would be amazing. It'd be my first chance to have anything get released. So it got released. It was an artist by the name of Craig Smart. The song was called What Went On. And they released it as a single, and I didn't expect anything to happen, but it then got into top 40 and then went into top 10 in Canada. And I heard it while I was animating on my job and just basically stood up and said, that's it. There it is. And I did quit the next week.
Really?
I quit. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I left my high-paying animation job. I just bought my first house. I just had my first baby.
Mortgage payments.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that having a hit in Canada doesn't mean very much. You don't really make a whole heck of a lot. But anyways, it just sort of enabled me to then put all my eggs into one basket. And my reasoning was that if I've made it happen once, then I can make it happen again. If I really fully focus on it, maybe it can happen a lot sooner than the amount of time that it took the first time. And that year is when Canadian Idol started up. And I was asked to be a part of that creative team just based on the song that came out, the single that was released. And I worked with the winner of Canadian Idol that year, and I wrote a whole bunch of songs. 2 of the songs got on the record. I produced one of them. The next year, I did kind of half the record for Kaylin Porter for the winner. And then the year after that, I did a lot of the record, and I wrote what's called the winner single, which is when they first win and they walk out on stage and they sing this big song that becomes their first single. And I co-wrote that with 2 people in Los Angeles that I really love, Jess Cates and Lindy Robbins. Lindy Robbins wrote Skyscraper for Demi Lovato and a whole bunch of other songs, really big songs. And we wrote this song called Alive that became Melissa O'Neill's first single. And the people at Jive Records in New York, they heard this song. I guess Lindy or Jess had sent it in because they had a good connection with the Jive Records people. Jive was responsible for Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, a whole bunch of different artists. And they said, wow, we love this song. Who produced this? And they said, Rob Wells up in Canada. So they reached out to me and said, we love this. We'd like to fly you down and have you work with an artist that we're working with, the lead singer of 98 Degrees. And I freaked out, and I'd never imagined, anything like this happening. And they flew me down to New York City, my first time ever going to New York. And, I walked into the studio.
It snowballed quickly, didn't it? It
really did. It was like the whole analogy of popcorn kernels, like just looking at popcorn kernels, waiting for them to pop. And then eventually one goes off, then 2 go off, then 5, then 10. And then the whole thing's overflowing like crazy. And that's sort of the initial first few years, and then after that, it just continued sort of an exponential growth.
That's
so
awesome.
Really, like, it was that moment of going to that camp, and you just never know. It's right. You said 2 years later, but it was really the sense of collaboration and networking that you're starting to do that really applies, right, Cody, to any sector, any person, creator, innovator,
business. Yeah, especially entrepreneurship and business. Networking, collaboration, something that we've chatted about endless amounts of time. So it's Absolutely. Cool to see that same principle kind of across the music industry as well.
I tell this to everybody. You have to get out. You have to leave your home. Yeah. You have to meet other people. You have to say hello and be a good person and make it so that people want to work with you and join forces with people, and don't just hold on to it all and say it's mine. Just get out there and just absolutely spread the wealth, spread the joy, and have a great time and meet lots of people.
Spread the wealth. We've heard that once or twice.
Silos really don't work in life. And when I figured that out too, to open and it was really when I came back to Peterborough for me, interestingly enough, just joining the Peterborough Chamber and joining this organization and joining this charitable event or this or that, like, it was a game changer. It really was. And it opened my eyes like, holy geez, this stuff works and it's real and it's authentic and it's genuine. And it's just, but it's so true what Rob is saying. Like, it applies. Like, there was that cathartic moment that you had to go through when you're like, well, I love writing, but why aren't I breaking out? Like, why isn't anyone discovering me? But it was the collabs that you did. And now it's just like exponentially snowballed from there. It's unbelievable.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Walk us through, like, what does music mean to you? Like, when you're collaborating with artists like Justin Bieber and Randy Bachman, Corey Hart.
I'm a lover of life and nature, and I see music everywhere, in everything. Music is, people say that they're not musical, but I argue against that all the time. Everybody is musical. Everything is musical. The changing of the seasons is getting to know them and finding out what they can do musically, where their talents lie, and then seeing how my talents can fit in there. And it's like cooking. It's like, having 2 chefs or 3 chefs in a kitchen are the same. It's always different. Even if I work with the same person over and over and over again, it's a different experience every day because of all those elements, of all the things that we're going through and the things that are inspiring us at that moment. I was just joking with somebody yesterday about a co-write that I had back in the early 2000s, where we wrote this huge song, and it's had like three cuts on it already. And then we thought, well, let's do it again. Let's have the 3 of us come back together again. We'll write something. And it was the worst experience ever. We couldn't actually come up with anything. We just went out and had a great lunch and some great laughs. But I mean, I'm just trying to think of other things.
Cody grew up in bands. Cody, you've been, like, music's been totally changed your life.
It is a cathartic feeling. And I'm just really curious, Rob, like, because, like, you're creative, I'm a creative, but like, you're also a business, like, man as well. Like, and you do business. So I'm curious how you balance the creativity and the business and what that looks like, like from, producing to creating to produce, and you're kind of creating even in producing, but you've done so much in your career. I'm just curious, how you balance being a creative, but also doing business.
Well, great question. I mean, it is called the music business, right? It is music and business. And if you don't take care of the business, then you can't really take care of the music. It's really hard to be creative and write a song when you're worried about paying the bills. Mm-hmm. So you just have to just always make sure that the way that I break up my days is kind of like this. I kind of keep banker's hours. I don't work crazy hours. I don't work till 4 a.m. and then I'm a waste the next day. I try to work as much as I can from 9 to 6. And the way that I break it up is that 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock is all business. And that's answering emails. That's looking after contracts. That's hustling for new gigs. That's learning new software. That's doing things like this, like podcast, just networking, doing your accounting. Man, there's so many different things. I actually have a long list of all the things that I do. Hustling for new gigs, taking care of older gigs that sometimes come around and I need to do some fixes on. You have to take care of all that aspect. It's very, very important. And if you don't, then it becomes a massive mountain that it's out of control. So I need to take care of that from 9 until 11. And sometimes it's a little bit longer. Sometimes I take a whole day out of 1 week to do that. But the rest of the time is just, I try to be as creative as possible and try to push that business side to the side once it's taken care of.
But what's interesting, what he just said, Cody, is the hustle never ends, does it?
Yeah.
Like like what I would assume, which I shouldn't, because I'm an entrepreneur too, like Rob, that you're off to the races now. People are just going to knock on down your door every day to say, hey, I want to do this with you or that, but it doesn't end, does it?
Well, there's definitely an element of that. I mean, I thankfully have a lot of people that do find me or they've heard something that I worked on and they're really loving it and they think, well, maybe he could do something for me. But then, I mean, the hustle does never end. I have to constantly stay on top of the changing times. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't tell you how many times musical styles have changed since I've been doing this professionally. Like it went from me doing a lot of pop rock stuff to like boy band stuff to back to pop rock, back into like tropical house and doing more like urban stuff and everything. So just like staying on top of the curve and just staying current and relevant is also very, very important because, I mean, let's be honest, I'm 47. This is kind of a young person's game. And all the young, new, hip, hot producers that are coming out that are 18, 19, 20, that everyone's freaking out over, I have to compete with that. So I have to stay relevant, I have to stay current, and I have to stay exciting enough that people want to still work with me as I go off into grand old age.
I could just stay relevant by bringing Cody on as my partner.
Is that what you brought me on? Now you really know.
That's it.
There was one key thing that Rob said that I want every business owner listening back to the replay or listening live to really say. It's the time blocking thing. And something we've been chatting about over the last little while. A lot of people wonder why, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you're constantly struggling in order to get things done. You know, what Rob said there, and I just really want to touch on this, and maybe you could add maybe a little bit more to this, but you said from 9 to 11 or 9 to 12, I focus on these things, these needle moving activities. Time blocking is something super, super important. So like, do you have any time blocking tips or tactics for entrepreneurs, or like, what do you do specifically with time blocking that you find is really working to get those needle moving activities done in your business?
And sorry, before Rob answers this, I'm going to contextualize a little bit more. A lot of people think that creators just sort of wake up and like do things when they want. Like it's structure. Like one of the best books I've ever read was Stephen King on writing, about how to write. And he is the most disciplined person, as most creative people are, whether they're musicians or authors, it doesn't matter. It happens through structure and discipline and repetition. So I just want to set that up, that this is by no means an exception to the rule. This is a discipline. So sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Absolutely. Like I'll just answer Neil first. Just labels and managers send their artists to work with me. And they arrive at and they're not expecting me to say, you know what, today's not a great day, I'm not inspired. I have to deliver. I have to completely deliver. I have to meet this artist and get to know them within the first hour, make them feel comfortable that they can say anything without feeling like a fool. And then we have to try to pump out a song that by the end of it sounds like a hit that they want to use on their record and hopefully release as a single. Otherwise, it's a waste of time for all of us. So it is a job. The way that I get around writer's block and being stuck by any idea or anything like that is co-writing, and is having 3 people in a room, including myself. That's really the magic number, is to just like have people in the room that if one of those people is having a bad day, 2 other people can pick up and they can say, well, I've got an idea. What about this? And then the other person can be like, well, I like that. What about if we take that and twist it around and it becomes like this? And then I hear that and I'm having the bad day and it's like, oh, that's so cool. I never even thought about that. Well, what if I add this musically to this and I create this melody to that? And it's just like, that's how we get around, making this thing happen. Now, talking about structure, 2 things that I highly recommend to everybody. If you do not live and breathe by your calendar, you are a fool. You're an absolute fool. You need a rocking calendar, and you need to live and breathe by that calendar. And you need to be on top of it, that whenever anything happens, that you are in there and you are scheduling in time for this, time for that, and live and breathe by that. Another thing that I have is just, you can either have it on your phone or you can have an actual whiteboard that's right in front of where you work. So there's your computer monitor, and right above that is all the pending things that are coming up. And it just really helps that if something's always staring you in the face and you know that you've got this to do and that to do, then you can kind of prioritize and say, well, I know this is going to take a lot of time, so I'm going to put a little bit more importance on this, or this person's screaming a little bit louder for their project to be done, so I'll work on that. Just those 2 elements are definitely things that help you structure your life and structure the business end of things, and make sure that you are a well-oiled machine and that you're still moving forward.
Yeah, whiteboards are a game changer. Cody has a whiteboard right next to him there in his office. We have another one. It's been a game changer for us when we added whiteboards to the structure. And
simple as that is, it seems so stupid, but it's just it's so simple and so effective to just have that whiteboard. It's amazing.
It's like it's the next step after graduating from sticky notes.
Yes.
It's funny because I literally have a sticky note right here. I have whiteboards. Like, again, it's a mind thing. It's the open board, the ability to be creative, but with almost like accountability. Be creative with accountability. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Rob,
yes.
Does it ever get old for you to hear your stuff on TV commercials and video games and movies and Netflix? Like, does it ever get old, or do you still get goosebumps when that happens? Or radio play? Like, walk me through that feeling.
I was in Loblaws the other day and I heard one of my songs come on. That's just, you want to like grab the next person to you and be like, I wrote that. That never gets tired. I'm so excited by this. I tell everybody, like, I hate Friday nights and I love Monday mornings. Don't get me wrong. I love my family and I love my kids, but I love my work so much that I hate knowing that, I have to wait until Monday morning to make this rock again. And I'm so excited about it all. I'm excited about new music all the time. I never got stuck on one particular style of music and said, well, that's it, I'm only going to listen to this. I love all styles of music. I love listening to what's around the corner. I love being a part of what's around the corner. I'm excited by it all. And just like hearing your stuff in a movie, or seeing a kid playing a video game and your song comes on as background music, like that's crazy fun. It's fun to be part of it. And I don't expect that anybody 100 years is going to remember who I am, but it's fun to know that you're contributing to what's happening right now and having fun doing it.
Do you have a different approach than your brother? So your brother is an acclaimed songwriter as well, and producer, Greg Wells. I think he lives in Los Angeles.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have a different approach than him? And do you ever collaborate, the two of you? Walk us through that sort of process.
We don't really collaborate. It's kind of like having two Captain Kirks on the Enterprise. It's kind of hard to make that happen. He and I do the same thing, like we're both songwriter producers. He being in LA, so he works on a lot of massive projects that go through there. I've done the LA thing. I've gone down there and I've worked a whole bunch. I found that with LA, I was much happier when the plane was taking off and heading back to Canada than I was heading to LA. So I love being here in Canada. I love supporting Canadian acts, Canadian artists. I love the vibe here. I love the way of life in Canada, all of that. Sorry, I may have gone down a different train of thought.
No, but making it in life too. It's a good point. Like, you work with the most successful musicians in the world. You don't have to be in LA. You don't have to be in New York. You don't have to be in Nashville. Like, you've chosen to be in Canada, where you love. Like, you didn't bow to any kind of pressure like you could have. Like, I have to be here because of peer pressure or whatnot. It's very true and authentic to who you are, and it almost probably inspires you more, right?
It's very funny too how things have changed, because I used to tell people all the time I'm from Toronto, and they used to laugh. They'd think, Toronto's not a music city. Why are you living in there? And I'm like, dude, you have no idea. There's some of the best songwriters are here in Canada and in Toronto, and it's incredible. And I get way more inspiration working with people here than working with people in LA. There's a lot of great writers in LA too, and Nashville and London and Miami and all over the place, Stockholm. But I find that the best inspiration is here. It's absolutely like just lovely people, great attitudes. They're not looking at their clock thinking I got to head out to this next session. It's like, it's good, honest work. It's good, honest people, and music from the heart. And I love being a part of it. Definitely.
Rob, you have a ton of miles in this business, and I'm really curious about advice you would have for artists coming up in the industry that want to really make a go at this. Because I think there's a lot of people that, like growing up as a kid, I always wanted to be an artist, but I just never worked out. I found entrepreneurship, and I found this, and that's really brought me joy. But there's a lot of people that are coming up and wanting to either be a producer or wanting to be an artist. Like, what advice would you have for them, that of people that really want to make a go for it?
I would say do it for the right reasons. Definitely do it for the right reasons. If you wake up in the morning and the first thing that you think about is working on music or producing songs or singing for people, and then it's all you think about during the day, and then you go to sleep at night and that's what you're thinking about, and it's just itching and it's eating you inside, like, just that's what you have to do. You have to do what you love. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that in anything, like, just imagine you had all the money in the world, you had $80 million in the bank, you never have to work another day in your life. What is it that you want to do with your time? And whatever that answer is what you should be doing. And if music is what you should be doing, then absolutely do it. At the same time, music is a really hard business to get into at the very beginning. I would definitely suggest to not put all your eggs into one basket of music. Have something else. Have not a backup plan, but just like be employed or going to school if that's your age. But once you get out of school, definitely have a gig where you are making money, because it's really hard, as I said before, to be creative and worried about paying the bills. So definitely just have some sort of thing where financially you're okay and you can spend time in the evenings or the weekends to create your craft. Then when you're creating your craft, don't chase what's happening out there right now. Mm-hmm. Don't just be like, oh, well, this is popular right now, maybe I should be working on this. Follow your heart, follow your dream. Whatever it is that is speaking to you, saying that this is who I am, this is the kind of music that I like, whatever's true and honest to you, chase that and make that as amazing as possible. And if it's really, really good, then eventually one person is going to start listening, and then 2 people, and then 3 people, and then it starts going exponentially. Then more people are listening. Release music. And if your first release gets 10 listeners listening to it and they really like it, and 20 people saying, oh, that's garbage, whatever, who cares? Do it again and release the next one. Now instead of 10, it's now 50 people that are listening. Then release something again. And now it's 100 people, and it's a slow burn. It's slowly getting in there and getting in there and getting in there. The worst thing is to release one thing and have it massively blow up around the world, and then the next thing that you release, nothing happens. You're done. You're over. So just, I don't know.
Just the one-hit wonder, right?
Yeah. The best thing is to start slowly and build slowly, and then you build this massive following that never goes away.
Side hustle. And tell us about rejection, because we talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, very successful ones around the world, about this, and failing is part of success, right? Failure is part of the journey. It's actually a great part. It's part of being competitive and trying to win at your passion. So walk us through what failure has looked like to you over your life, and then what the wins look like.
Sure. In the music business, rejection is 99.9% of my life. It's constantly. I have a long list of people that I've worked with, and it looks very successful and amazing. But if I show you the other list, that's all the failed projects, all the things that never saw the light of day, it's probably 100 times as long. You can't let that knock you down and never get back up again. You just have to keep doing it. And again, if you love it, it's just, you'll find a way to make it work. You will get rejected nonstop. And one person will say no, another person will say no, another person will say no, and then all of a sudden that 100th person will be like, you know what, there's something here, and I really like this. Maybe this could be used for something. And then all of a sudden those other people that said no said, oh, I passed on that? Oh, I'm sorry. And like, think about the Beatles. The Beatles were rejected by everybody. Everybody rejected the Beatles, the #1 band of all time, the 2 most popular songwriters of all time. Everybody passed on it. So, I mean,
they had to go to Germany and jam for
right
before they were just. You're right.
Oh, it's crazy.
You just never know, man. But you also have to be resilient, right?
Yes.
You have to be incredibly resilient. And where did that come from with you? Where was it instilled in you, or did you just find it in yourself?
Man, I really have to say my grandfather on my mother's side and my mother definitely are very incredibly driven people. My dad too was a very driven person. But my grandfather came from Newfoundland and really wanted to become a professor at Queen's, and came from this little tiny fishing village, and eventually became a United Church minister and followed his passion and moved to Ontario, and then became a professor at Queen's teaching theology, where my parents met, and that's how I came to be. My mom, also very, very driven, was very much a force in getting myself and my brother into music, and always having music around, and always organizing musicals and plays and things that were happening in and around Peterborough. And she's still very, very driven. So I think like just having that in my blood and just seeing them as an example of just, you know, how to get out there and make things happen from nothing and build it up. That's really, really huge. I really always say, to succeed at anything in life, man, you need 3 things. It's a tripod. It's a camera tripod. And if one of those legs is missing, you will fall over. You need drive, you need talent, and you need personality. Those are the 3 most important things. And if you're missing any one of those things, it's not going to happen. You can have the best personality. You can have the best talent. If you have no drive and you're not networking, nothing's going to happen. It's just, you take away any one of those legs, it will not happen.
Yeah, the drive thing, the talent, the personality, entrepreneurial journey, like the biggest thing that Neil said to me on a consistent basis was network your ass off. Continue to like communicate, like continue to you shake the more money you make. And I really believe that. And, you know, we've gone through a pretty crazy last, 2 months. It's been nuts. We're global pandemic, and we had a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners very early on in this thing, in our community, in the StudioPTBO Marketing Hacks group, feel fairly deflated about what was happening in the world, practice their craft, which is entrepreneurship. I'm curious, Rob, like, what does mindset mean to you in business and music? And what does it mean to you as a producer? Maybe walk us through that and like what mindset means to you.
I try to have the most positive mindset of all. I try to see the joy in everything, see the beauty in everything, see the opportunity in everything. Really just, life is going to throw lots of curveballs your way. it's what you do with those curveballs that really, really makes the difference. I could definitely have said, wow, this really sucks. This pandemic has happened. I guess I should really just shut down and wait to see what happens. This made me work even harder. Just when you think you are working hard, you have to work harder. You have to work harder, and you have to find other opportunities, and you have to make things happen. I really think my dying breath walk over you. Be confident, but be kind at the same time, and create good work. You'll get repeat customers if you create good work and you make people really happy. If you made them laugh a couple times while you're working as well, just make it a great time and create amazing opportunities for yourself, and those turn into an amazing career, hopefully.
I love that outlook on life you have. And speaking of the pandemic, like Cody referenced, walk us through the backstory of the rendition you did of Don't Stop Believing. I think it's just beautiful. And, I'm already full of optimism and hope. And I was telling you before we got on the show here that I listen to that every day, the song you did, which has nearly 20,000 views right now. And it's a rendition of Don't Stop Believing, which is an anthem for everyone. Definitely an anthem growing up at Adam Scott. The best time I ever heard that was at a Holiday Inn in downtown Detroit. Once it was like, wow. Yeah, it was really cool. But walk us through the backstory of that song and what it's meant to people, because it's really resonated with people in this moment in time.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was asked by my manager, Bill Miller. He said, "What do you think about all these different songs that people are putting out, these different collaborations? Would you ever be interested in doing something like that?" There's a few producer managers that he manages, producers that he manages, and so we just thought, let's get all the people together under the same management label, the same musicians, the same producers, and each one of you work on a song, and just reach out to some of the people that you work with. See if they'd be interested in singing this. So I thought, man, this sounds like a great idea. Bill said you can choose whatever song you want, and I instantly thought, Don't Stop Believing. Let's do Don't Stop Believing. It's a fun song. It's positive. It's uplifting. It puts people in great moods, great spirits. And then I worked on just the basics of it, just to see if I could update the sound of Don't Stop Believing. It's a great song, great original production. I just wanted to bring it into 2020 a little bit, make it sound cool, and a different take on it. Once I was done with that, I sort of threw out a net out into the community of people that I've worked with. And I honestly expected to get a lot of no's, because who knows? It's crazy times. It's scary what's around the corner. Who knows what's happening, what's around the corner. But you wouldn't believe it, man. Like almost everybody came back and said, absolutely, how can I be involved? How can I do this? Including people like Desmond Child, who, like, I don't know if you guys know who Desmond Child is, but if you know all the big Bon Jovi songs or Aerosmith, like he wrote You Give Love a Bad Name.
Wow.
He wrote the other big Bon Jovi song. Sorry, the name's escaping.
Living on a Prayer?
Living on a Prayer. Sorry, there you go.
Okay.
He wrote that. He wrote Livin' La Vida Loca. Like all these massive songs. And he's a busy guy. Nick Lachey, there he is. I asked him as well, and he was like, absolutely, how can I be involved? Can you wait a couple of days because I got a really bad cold? These are all people that I've met along the way that I've worked with. We're all friends. Like that's the thing. When we get into the writing room and we're working together, and I'm working with somebody like Justin Bieber, like it's just like we're all the same. These are just people that are in extraordinary circumstances, and they have to then go out and take these songs and chop them and tour the world and do all that sort of thing. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, for sure. But it's just, these are all lovely, lovely people that are just great. There's the girl that sings for every Toronto Maple Leafs game, Martina Ortiz-Louis. She sings every anthem at the Maple Leafs when they're playing. So they just sent back their own videos that they created at home, and they were all amazing. At most, we'll get 1,000 views on this thing, and it just exploded out. And it's, as you say, coming up to 20,000 views, and hopefully after this podcast, maybe some more. And all the comments that I've been getting, all the shares, all the people that have been seeing this worldwide have just been saying how this has completely changed their attitude when they listen to it, that they wake up and they're all unsure of what the future holds. They don't know what the day is going to hold. They're looking at their kids thinking, when are you going back to school? When's life going to return back to normal? Yeah. They watch this video. It says, Don't Stop Believing. There's a yes.
That's why I said, are you going to sing a ballad today? But you didn't answer my question.
I was the only no. Everyone else said yes, but I'm like, sorry, Rob.
I think that was because I asked you.
I
was asking you to do a moonwalk in the video. But
I did that in grade 9. Yeah, the Adam Scott gym. Yeah, when Thriller came out. Actually, it was probably grade 8. I want to sort of finish up here a little bit talking about, and Cody might have another question too, but your social media game. So we always ask people like what it means to them, their social media game in terms of their marketing and branding and whatnot. And like, I really like your Instagram account and how you approach the content there and delivery, and it's not overly polished, or which I like it feels true to you. Give us your lens and your take on what social media means to you in terms of your strategy behind it, and whether you're on TikTok or not, because I'm a huge proponent of that.
I knew you were going to ask that question.
Yeah, I had to throw that out.
I think I started TikTok and I did one post, but I don't quite get it yet. I'm old and gray, so maybe I'll go
follow my TikTok and then you'll get it.
All right. Okay. Social media is very important. I've always loved technology. I've always loved computers. I remember at Edmondson Heights, Mr. Tompkins, the same teacher, brought in a pet computer into the classroom. This is before the Commodore 64, and I just thought, this is so cool. This is amazing. And then when I got my own Commodore 64, I was creating beats. There was a drum machine program. There was a keyboard program, and I was making music with a joystick. It was nuts. So just like anything with technology, I've really grasped onto. I really, really love it. Social media is fantastic. I love the fact that you can reach a lot of people really, really quickly. It's just even using iMessage or, instant messaging apps and stuff like that. It's such a great, great tool. Look at this. We're here. We're all in different houses right now, and we're all talking to each other while looking at my Instagram page. It's crazy technology. I love it. I never want to come off as a pretentious person. I don't think that I'm more important than the other person. So my social media game is probably, as you say, not as polished as the other person. I'm a family guy. I love to put my videos of my kids on there and things that are going on at home. Occasionally I'll put some sort of musical event that's on there. It's a mixed bag. It is called Rob W Music, but it really should be called maybe Rob W Life. I don't know. It's my life isn't just music. It's so many different things. I go for a walk in nature every day, and I connect with nature. That's really important to me. So yesterday I posted a picture of a snail that I saw just creeping along, and just little things like that. It's just I want to appear to everybody else as a real person, as a family person, as somebody that likes to have a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, not take life too seriously. Maybe that's part of the Newfoundland side of my family. I don't know. Just love to laugh and laugh at myself, and then occasionally post what I'm doing with music. And if that's of interest to anybody, then that's awesome.
Rob, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Like the amount of insights, right, Neil, that we got today is just absolutely phenomenal. Mindset, productivity, production, music, like just you name it. We really, really appreciate having you on the podcast today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate being on here.
And last question, most important, did Mr. Hughes accept your friend request?
He still has not. I don't know what's going on.
Mr. Hughes, come on.
Because are you kidding me? Because I've been working behind the scenes on this for the last 24 hours for him to accept. Okay. I'm sorry.
Maybe I'll find a surprise when I log into Facebook now.
Okay. I literally hit up Suki, his daughter, to say, you've got to accept Rob's. Anyway.
It's been years. It's been years that I've been waiting for him to hit that accept button. And I'm starting to feel
he is going to see this podcast, and we're going to make this happen. You're going to be friends. But
Mr. Hughes, please.
Please. Listen, I echo Cody, full of gratitude for having you on the show and reconnecting with you. And your outlook and optimism on life is a beautiful thing, and it's real and authentic. And kudos. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for showing up. Again, thank you so much for tuning into the Studio PTBO podcast. These things keep coming up on the podcast, the mindset stuff, the gratitude, the perspective, all something is super important to run a business, to be in the music industry. Like Rob said, I thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Studio PTBO podcast. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur that is looking to grow and scale in the online space, we have a free Studio PTBO marketing hacks group. It's in the comments section below. Love to see you inside of there. Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you, Rob. And thank you for tuning into the Studio PTBO podcast. We will see you soon.
Okay.